welcome back to the Experience Strategy Podcast with Joe Pine, author of the maybe forthcoming, maybe newly released Transformation book. I say that because depending on the day we actually get this to
We're
you,
that close.
we're that close. Dave Norton, founder and principal of Stone Mantle, an experienced futurist, and me, Aranza Savas, an expert in behavior change and motivation. We've missed you guys. It's been a few weeks. We took a little holiday break for Joe to prep for book tour, Dave to transition onto some new projects, and me to I don't know what I was doing. But
You were
we've
busy,
missed you
yes.
guys. And I've missed you guys, Joe and Dave. Really excited for this conversation today. As you might have guessed, we're going to talk a little about transformation. We're not going to talk about Joe's book specifically, though. We're going to wait. Save that for the next episode. For today, we're going to talk about an article recently from the Washington Post. It came out January 12th of this year. The title is These are the treatments dominating the business of living longer. The big money, big promises, and uncertain evidence behind the booming longevity business. Written by Tricia Thadani. The subhead says it all. There's a lot of appetite to meet the promise and the hope of living longer better. Because one of the points that this article makes is that there's a lot of evidence to point to the fact that, yeah, we're living longer, but we're not living better necessarily. And so these people are addressing both the desire to live better and longer, and that the appetite for change is outpacing the appetite for vetting the efficacy of these claims and offerings. So really perfect time to have this conversation, as hopefully we're all going to be talking more about transformation in the wake of Joe's work. And I'll be just over here alliterating in the meantime. So Joe Pine, author of the Transformation book.
I was going to say, I love how your name alliterates.
It does. And it always did, too. Fun fact. My maiden name was Thomas. Tripp, right?
Arances Thomas.
Meant to be. Like yeah, meant to be, I guess. Definitely. Like, one of those things that made me believe that there maybe are soulmates, or at least soul last names. So Joe, as the forthcoming, potentially or currently released author of the book on transformation, how does this trend and this article align with what you're talking about in your book and help us understand what's behind this article, which frankly, I'll give you a shortcut on it for anyone who didn't read it. It just says there's a bunch of wild stuff out there and it's a bit of a Wild West. So how does this connect with what you're sharing in your book?
Well, fundamentally, the people who are involved in this, who want to live longer, have that aspiration, right? They aspire to live longer, but they aspire to live longer in a particular way, which is where they're very healthy and they're very lucid. One of the things in the article said 90 is the new 60, right? I mean, that's not, but that's what they want to get to. And I remember, one of the things it said too, which I think is just blatantly wrong, it's the average person dies at 76, right? In which case I'm within a decade of dying, but on average. But in fact, if you make it this far, then your life expectancy is a lot higher. But it's a very misleading number to say something like that. But anyway, it's an aspiration people have. I was trying to decide. I've got this framework in the book on 4 types of aspiration. And where there's small change, refinement, and cultivation, and there's large change, ambition, and metamorphosis. And my first reaction is this is ambition, which is a large scale change in a current identity, right? When the current identity is that I'm aging and I want to slow that down in a very big way. That's what ambition is, a very big way. I don't think it's a metamorphosis, or it might lean over to that, which is where you gain a new aspect of identity. But maybe it is where they say, I was old, now I'm young, right? But I don't think it ever turns back time. I think they're trying to slow down time in what they're doing. And so there are, as you said, a wild west. There's a ton of companies that recognize the opportunity. One of the reasons for the opportunity, and I think I've said this, well, no, I might have said this before in a previous episode. I don't think so. There's something else I want to say that I think I've said in a previous episode. But
I'm sure it bears repeating.
Yes, right. The opportunity. Why is there such an opportunity? Because fundamentally, people value their time more than they did in the past when life was nasty, short, brutish, and whatever the other famous word is. And it's a fundamental fact. We value our time more than we used to. We make a lot more money, not just in terms of like inflationary, dollars or more, but we make a lot more money. We're much more abundant. We have much more wealth. We have also all of these wonderful experiences that we want to have. There's not enough time in the world to have all the experiences that you might want to have. And so the way to do that is to stretch out the time that you have where you're living healthily and therefore can enjoy all these experiences and can use all the abundance that we have. And that's fundamentally what's going on. It is one of the reasons why healthcare is it costs so much more than it did before, right? There's so much more money spent on it. Obviously, a major reason is the government mucks it up. Whenever the government gets involved and you get all that regulation, you're going to muck it up. And because the person who should be the customer, the individual, is not paying the bills, and therefore there's no incentive to lower those bills. But the other big reason is because we value our health more, we value our lives more, we in particular value our time more.
Well, I think that I love what you're saying, and I like this idea that it is kind of an ambition that people are moving toward. You think about the psychiatric industry. There was this whole movement for many decades to try to fix people. Okay. And they did a lot of things up until the 70s where
including a lot of damage
got better and better, and because and so forth. And then all of a sudden the industry realized that maybe they should be focused on happiness. Not there was this future state. Instead of trying to just stop people from struggling, they needed to move to a future state of helping people to thrive, to flourish. You talk a lot about flourishing in your book and so forth. We may very well be seeing that occurring in the healthcare industry now. My research showed that there's like $8.5 billion that's spent on longevity right now. And longevity means fewer chronic conditions, fewer acute conditions. There's a lot of really, really positive things that they're suggesting. Now, so it wasn't in this particular article, but in another article, I read that fecal transfers from young people
I have read that.
Very helpful. You've read that as well.
Read that as well.
So like there's all kinds of weird stuff that
Does changing your kids' diapers count?
Well, that's what I was going to say. My grandson,
dinner time.
I was like, does him farting on me, does that count? I mean, like,
no. That's particulate matter. You need the real stuff.
The real stuff. But I think that what's going on in healthcare is this transformation away from trying to fix problems toward something that's much more proactive, which is what people have been asking for a long time. Like, I'm pretty sure I have this chronic condition because you're not looking at me holistically. Mm-hmm. You're not able to really address the impact that diet has. You haven't told me enough about how my body actually works. And that's what they're looking forward to. And so I think it has everything to do with the transformation, not just of individuals, but the transformation of the business of healthcare.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk for a second about what this means for folks in the transformation economy. And part of what I think we should all be taking from this is a reminder about the inherent value of social proof and designing for transformation. So, Joe always says, like, the cost of transformation, the purchase decisions are driven by outcomes. And so if you're going to design for transformation, you have to be selling outcomes. Well, historically, we had to sell outcomes through sort of centralized measures, right? So trust and in other times was built by saying established centralized forces validate the evidence of your promise. Now, in our dissipated trust, and this is again globally, as we've talked about so many times, trust has been decentralized in the same way efficacy has been decentralized. And so where these people are delivering proof of promise is through it's social media influencers, it's the neighbor next to you, right? And so these sort of grassroots efforts are, I think, going to continue to be a really big driver of the transformation economy. I don't yet see any like evidence that we're going to re-centralize our trust at any point in the near future. I think we've still got a good long stretch of decentralized trust in front of us.
Interesting. I mean, like I find that I have much more access today to primary research sources for clinical types of things. My father is going through some cognitive testing. And so all of a sudden I'm getting all of these studies. Just a little hack here for you. Parkinson's disease is not a genetic disease. It's
That's
actually
good, since my father and grandfather had it.
It's what the latest research is suggesting is that it has to do with dental care. So the same bacteria in your cavities is the bacteria that makes its way into the brain. So brush your teeth and floss, and you have a pretty good chance of avoiding Parkinson's disease. So I'm getting access to primary sources on a pretty regular basis, which helps me. I mean, I certainly am paying attention to what's going on with the influencers. And this article talks about influencers as well and the impact that they're having. Of course, their credibility is built on outcome as well. Like if there's no outcome, they're going to lose credibility very, very quickly. So,
and one of the issues there is that the outcome happens on such a long time frame. I mean, they actually really have no idea if anything that you're doing is working because they haven't been doing it long enough.
This particular category is it?
Yeah. I think that the outcomes. I think that the science is getting there. I really do, and I think that AI is going to speed up the science by which we're able to respond. I think people can measure things about their bodies like never before. Evidently, there's this big trend right now that everybody's wearing their glucose monitors. Like it's not enough to have an Oura ring anymore. You need to have a glucose monitor
and show it. You're saying,
and show it. Yeah, like you're jogging through the park and you got your monitor on your arm, right? And it's no longer a marker that you've got diabetes. It's just
that you care about your health. Yeah.
So,
so much of it, though, they do talk about how the placebo effect. And I think one of the quotes in there that really struck me that pertains to this category at large, the guy was like, I don't know, maybe it's a placebo effect, but whatever, I feel better.
Right. He said even if he knew it was a placebo effect, he was going to take it, which was interesting. And
I think that's true.
And it's real. The placebo effect is absolutely real.
Yeah.
The mind is an amazing thing.
There's a lot of opportunity there to say, like, for people to acknowledge, like, whatever, right? If people feel better, they feel better. Maybe we don't have, I think about this all a little bit differently, having been with Weight Watchers through a very transformative 18-year period. So when I started at the company, nutrition was king. And nutritional science and randomized clinical trials rooted in nutrition science, absolute gold standard, but we would not say anything if it were not rigorously vetted by the science team. And that the science team didn't feel like was FDA approved. Like it was so rigorous. We were scared every day, and we were really fenced in, frankly, about how we could meet customer needs because of science's needs. And then we shifted to being led by motivational scientists.
You recognize it was a fence of your own making.
It was a fence of our own making. And so then the next fence was a little bit wider, right? Because we've always treated psychology as more of a soft science. The fence is already quite a bit larger there. And we gave ourselves just a little bit of leeway, right? We were able to say a little bit more, but still science was king. And then we went through a phase where brand was king and science was secondary. And watching that evolution, and I don't know where they are now, but watching that evolution was really interesting because it radically changed what we had permission to share with our customer, how we could meet their needs. And I can't say that any of it, anyone other than the customer was at the center, right? We were saying science has to be king for the sake of the customer. So it's not as though we were compromising there. It was just
it was
how
for
we
the
honored
protection
that
of the brand
promise.
in a way too.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you thought that would be the thing that could destroy your reputation with customers.
Correct.
Right. If you started doing that. Yeah.
Correct. And that's what the climate called for. Now the climate really is so much more open. And people are listening to brands less. So it becomes less of a relevant factor.
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the things that we did in the collaboratives is some research around what made, I think we've talked about this a lot, about what makes experiences meaningful to people. And we realized that systems and systemic thinking is connected to meaningful experiences. That was a big aha for us. One of the key reasons why systems was connected for people is because they had these metrics in their mind that were much more holistic in general. So longevity was one of the metrics that they had for why they had a system, because they wanted their life to be elongated, as much as possible, so that they would have health systems to improve not just immediate well-being. Sure, I want to feel good right now, but I want to be able to do things that I wasn't able to do when I was in my 60s and 70s and so forth.
It's very clear that everything they're talking about is a system, right? It's not these point things. You got to do X and Y and Z and A and B and C and so forth, and in the right order and in the right way and in a regimented way, right? Or they believe it's not going to happen.
I also think we have been pretty limited in the way that we talk about aging. And in fact, I joked about what was I doing for the last few months. I was off writing my book, which very much centers around the idea of aging and how we perceive the second half of our lives in terms of opportunity for growth and impact. And there was a study that came out from an Australian team, third quarter of last year, that said that on the big five personality traits, so extroversion, emotional stability, conscientiousness, openness to experience, and agreeableness, they did a massive metadata analysis and across 16 different dimensions found that actually in many, many parts of our lives, we peak in our 50s and 60s. And that these age-related declines that we're talking about oftentimes don't begin until 75. And yeah, there are some physical declines that start much earlier in our 30s even, or even in 20s. But the cognitive declines that we talk so much about and that so much of this work is focused on actually are in many cases fighting a problem that doesn't exist, but I think centering on a fear that has been created through the storytelling. And of course, in my book, I'm going to try to counter some of that fear and help people perceive the potential of second half of life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
awesome.
super excited about
I'm
it.
excited for your new book.
Thanks,
And
me too.
Me too.
Publisher. So exciting.
And all three of us will have books.
Yay.
Mine's a little outdated, but
Yeah, you're working on another one. Still,
I am,
yes.
but I don't have a publisher, so
Right. Well, it'll come. It'll come.
He's
Let me
here
say
ready.
one more.
He's here and ready for you, publishers.
That's right. That's great stuff
that's
too.
right.
Get on Dave's Substack. What's the name of the Substack, Dave?
theexperiencedstrategist.com.
Right.
Yeah.
And so get his writing there. I want to mention one thing before we close. There's one guy who's sort of become famous in this movement, a tech entrepreneur called Brian Johnson, I think it is. Yeah, Brian Johnson. And he's like not quite 50. He's known for spending $2 million a year on this.
Yeah.
Right. And all of this
Kids
stuff
love
is
them.
very expensive right now. And I think I've mentioned this before, but this is what I wanted to say is that recognize that what the wealthy do is that they invent all this stuff. It costs a lot of money to invent. And after it's been invented by people catering to the wealthy and all these, millions and billions of dollars, then they figured out how to democratize it and bring it down to where ordinary people can afford it. So you look at this stuff, you read that article, you say, well, this is not for me. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford the time in my mind of being able to do all this stuff. But recognize 5, 10, 15, 20 years, all that stuff that they're doing now, if it works, and that's enough time to figure out if it really works, then will become things that the middle socioeconomic offerings, if not everybody, can take advantage of.
Maybe we can include in show notes a reminder of the other episode we did on what the wealthy are doing and why we should all be paying attention. Because it's true. It's a really good point, Joe, in terms of the future of where all of this is headed and where we should be listening. It is relevant, even if it does feel inaccessible. Well, guys, this is fun to be back. To our listeners, thank you for being here. Thanks for being patient with us as we took our little winter holiday. We're thrilled to be back with you in 2026 for another year of looking at trends and experience strategy and identifying what they mean for you, for us, and the future. Thanks for listening.